JavaScript in just 10 videos. So I want to kind of finish up with a couple of things that, there we go. I want to finish up with a couple of things that will lead us into what we're going to pretty much finish off with this entire tutorial series in the next set of tutorial videos I want to give you and everything like that. And what we're going to start with is, and it's pretty much what we've done, because as I said before, JavaScript, everything is objects. It's all object-oriented programming. Everything here is an object. You turn it into an object. Every object has functions, whatever, and ways to identify them and everything. But I mentioned in the last video XML, and there's another way that you can transfer data from one server or one site to another, and that is what's called JSON, J-S-O-N. JSON is spelled usually like this, and it is available in pretty much anything that is connected to JavaScript. It's available in everything connected to JavaScript because it's JavaScript specific. And it's more or less what we just did, excuse me, I'm still getting over this flu, but it's more or less what we just did with XML, just that it's a little bit more readable. So you would kind of open it up by saying something like var, I don't know, we'll do the person thing again, and you open brackets. So now at this point, the JavaScript understands that you are going to give it a set of data. And the way that JSON is read is, it's read in stuff like, you know, like you say, like first name in quotes, and then you put a thing, and a colon, and then you say like you, and then you separate with a comma, and you go last name in quotes, and you say, well, actually, hold on, let me just double check and make sure that I have, because this looks a little bit too much like an object, so let me just double check. Right, you have to put it in brackets, my fault. Okay, so you put this in there, and then you go, it would be, I always got to check my syntax. It would be like this. So you would name it first, say person, and then it would be, right, I was right. And then it would be colon, and then you would open it up with this, and within this, you can then close it, like that. Let me just double check, see if there's any, right, well, the semicolon is here. But you would separate, like you would want to tell the compute or the JavaScript within these brackets is a set of data. Let me just make sure I got the syntax right. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Okay. Actually, wait. This is... Okay. Concatenation, I forgot, because it's text. So obviously I don't write JSON objects, but you would give it a first name, and you want to keep it all in these brackets. And I mean, it's really gross the way they do this, but whatever. That's JavaScript. But you want to keep it in brackets. You want to keep it in quotes, single quotes. Make sure that, and we're going to look at this further in with programming, make sure that when you do quotes, you alternate. In all programming, and again, I'm going to be doing operators and other programming methods and everything. In all programming, if you want to tell the system or the compiler that you're using that something should be considered text, you always put it in quotes. But to ensure that it knows where one bit of text starts, ends, and the other one starts and ends, you make sure you alternate between single quotes and double quotes. That's what we're doing here. So we can fill this up. We can say, in person, and we could have first name you, comma, last name man. Put 2 M's. End quote. And that's one entry. And then you could put something else in here. You could say, comma, open, close, open brackets, age 21. And then we start a new entry of first name. Oh, no, well, I'd keep like that. And Sheeta. Close that. Close that. Open new data entry of last name woman and comma and then age she won't. Now we have a problem here, right? Because we want to put won't, which means we need another apostrophe or single quote. So if you ever want to comment it out, kind of, or let the compiler or what have you, the server, know that you're using this as a not as an end quote, but as an apostrophe, you just do one of these. So now it knows that this is text. And it's sort of like commenting out. Tell, close, and you could just put in another one if you want. And let me see. Let's close. And then at that point, I mean, if you wanted to put somebody else in there, you could, but let me just make sure I got the syntax right. But we're not going to go nuts. So let's just close this out. And there you have it. And that's... Now let me just double check, because it looks like this isn't really... And that would more or less be a JSON object. Now, we don't have to put this in a function. I mean, we could just put this like in a JSON file. But with the AJAX send function, what we call the AJAX send function, what we can do, let me just make sure, because this, let's see, this open, blah, blah, blah. I don't think I need that one, do I? I do need that one, but hold on. Let's see, what am I doing? Alright, so if I put it here, okay, so I'm missing this one. Because again, this is the reason why I got to put these single quotes in the right spot is because it's like text. So wait, what am I? So this side. So we'll just put the bracket here. We'll close this one. All right, so we close that one, and then we have a bracket, and then that's. Right. So after this, bop. Okay. So now it knows it's just text being sent, and this is how you do. So it's kind of like XML, where we would put a tag here and a tag here, and put the thing here, and put a tag here and a tag here, and put all the information, whatever. It's kind of the same thing. It just looks different. Now, for anyone that was saying, hey, I'm a Python programmer and I just decided to hop onto your tutorials because I want to get a little bit more web development information and everything, this kind of looks like a dictionary in Python, and that's one of the reasons why people like to use Python when it comes to doing online applications, because a lot of it is very easily translated into like JavaScript and everything. JavaScript is more or less based on C programming, which is what Python more or less is based. Everything is C programming in one form or another. But we can also parse this, which is what you're looking at here, where we can say that if we look at this example, we can see that what they do is they take the text, and now we can say, okay, so we called this person, we can say var info equals json.parse, and then we'll say person, and now we have this info array. Remember we were talking about arrays? We have this info array, and now what we can do is within, whenever we press the button, we can say that, let's see, what did we put? We put this in process, right? Ajax send, blah, blah, blah. We'll go image area and get rid of that. And we could say that in document, get element by ID, image area, inner HTML, we can now get this info by saying info dot, or info, it's an array, yeah, info 1, which is the, well, info 0, which is the first entry, age. And if I put this JSON file right, we should be able to see that on a button press. So let's go to process. Let's see if there's anything here. Unexpected string. Okay, so that's not good. Well, let's just take a look. Let's go send. Ajax send is not defined. Okay. I think it is, but that's okay. Ajax send. Ajax send is not defined at HTML button element. I get this too often. But anyway, I mean, I think there's, because it doesn't really have anything. But whatever the case, like you could parse. Now, listen, I'm not going to be doing JSON myself, but this kind of leads us into what we're going to be doing next, which is where the fun in programming really is. And that is object-oriented programming. That's making our own objects. So now if we wanted to make an object, and again, I'm going to open this up. I mean, it kind of looks like I'm rushing through it because you want to see it work. But like that's what JSON is. Again, like it's XML, where you're sending data, and you'll see it. We'll do things. I mean, really there's no difference between JSON sending and XML for the most part, unless you're programming in something that's not what we're going to be programming in. Because newer languages like, well, not newer languages, although Python is a little newer, but newer languages like Python, whatever, or Rust, whatever they're using now, they kind of use that format, that JSON format that we're looking at. And I can look at, JavaScript, JSON. We can look at more JSON formats and everything like that. Like they kind of send things this way, like this, as opposed to the XML. Because if you look, this is a little easier to read. Now again, it's also easier to hack. And JSON has parse, which we were looking at, which can kind of, you can make it into like an object or an array. So you can use things like count, result, and stuff like that if you needed to. Or stringify, which turns into a string, so you can use string functions with it if you needed to. That would be more if you get data from a page and then you need to kind of print it out in a certain way. Which again, we can look at with the next thing that we do, but I just want to kind of introduce that to you because we want to talk about objects. And objects are what we've been using, only now our objects are objects that we're making. So we can make an object that has all functionalities and identifiers. And when we do that, again, you open the brackets and everything and you close it with a semicolon. When we do that, now we don't put quotes unless we're actually putting information in there. Now, instead, we just put base things. Name. This is a base identifier. Name. Me. Comma. Last name. Or let's say first name. Last name. And we're identifying what a person is. Me. Age. 23, 24. And now, I'm not 24, don't worry. And now we can also say, we can also implement a functionality by doing something like greeting, and now we can say function. Let me just double check the syntax. Right, okay, so we just function, and at that point we can have a greeting which we can say return suck you. Semicolon. And now what this then does is this creates an object of a person that we can then reference, and we're putting this in the function, and you don't really want to put it in a function. Like if you look here, like you would just create it, right? So we can just create it. So let's get out of this function. Let's just create it. So now, like this function that we created here, we can create this in our sheet. We can create this object, and then throughout the page, we can kind of go to our Ajax send. Now, it keeps saying that Ajax send isn't identified, but we can just kind of go. Let me just say, it's spelled right, but I think it's looking for something to return. Whatever. But we can go here and we could say on the button press, we can, let me see, okay, we can do it in an HTML, I guess. I look to get ideas of what I can do. We can go document, get element by ID, and that is image area, right? And we could say person dot first name. All right. Now it should work on a button press, but again, it's probably going to say something like, no, there it is, me. So we can now get this object that we've created. And you could do something a little bit more extensive. You don't have to just have return. And we could say, like, when we call a function, we can say greeting. As you can see, it's already highlighting it because we have this function. Return suck you. Now, it's printing out the return suck you because we didn't, I mean, that's if we do it without, okay, so that's if we do it without the parentheses. If we do it with the parentheses, because that's an identifier. We have to tell it what in greeting we want, and we want suck you. So the reason why I'm showing you this, and again, you could do something even more so. You can go even further, and you can say new greeting function and we could put in here, put B or something like that. And then that just kind of, that's an argument that references something we're going to put in there later. And we can say return suck you concatenate B, concatenate exclamation point plop. And now we can say new greeting, and we'll just put variable greets equals document get element by ID. I mean, you don't have to, I think it's username, isn't it? No, it's name. You don't have to have the naming conventions I do. My naming conventions are just hard, disgusting, abhorrent. You don't need to put the ones that I put in there. But this is just what comes out of my head when I think this stuff. And then we can go like this. Like, you don't have to have something that says suck you. Like, you know, like that's just... Did I not? I think, all right, I got to put a comma there. Sorry. Put a comma in there, folks. It's called syntax. Now we could put, and it says suck you Django. Because we have identified a function known as new greeting, and in that function, we've put an argument that we've then returned in here. So whatever we put in the greets is going to keep doing this because we've told it in this object what we want it to do. And we've identified it. Now, this is simplistic object-oriented programming. This is not, we're going to go deeper into it with other functionality, with another programming language, which we're getting to. But I just wanted to show you now, again, the JSON thing seems like this one we actually did stuff. And you can, and this is just a starting point. You can go in here and you can identify, but you notice what we did here. You see what we're doing. We're breaking down what JavaScript is and how JavaScript is built. JavaScript is a series of these identifiers, these objects that take different identifiers and identifying functions and does stuff with them. So now you know how you can create an object yourself that can do things that JavaScript doesn't have preordained. Because the key to programming is to do things that the programming language doesn't preordain, to make something more of on your own. When it comes to the JSON, I just wanted to show you for future reference because it is JavaScript. I just wanted to show you something that we will look at in the future and get an idea of how it's broken down and everything. That's sending data from one application or one server to another. This is actual object-oriented programming that you can do stuff with. And I just wanted to show you that as we finish up, because that is, when it comes to programming, the first thing you have to know is, it's like speaking a language. You got to know conjugations, you have to know syntax, and then at that point, you have to know how to put it all together. What we did was we went through variables, we went through the functionality of everything, how it works, and now I'm showing you how to make your own objects so you can further along what you're doing in JavaScript. And don't forget too, we're already using other objects, like image objects. When you do something with an image, you're doing something with an object. And this object is like this. And it has identifiers and it has functionality. Now you know how it works. When I come back, we're going to finish up JavaScript. I'm not really going to be doing anything more than what we've done with this site, or definitely not doing anything with this site we were building. We're not going to touch this site anymore. Okay, we're not going to be doing anything with contact or whatever. I mean, we could keep this the way it is. Wait, hold on. What was this? Site. We can keep this the way it is, the contact and everything. But we're not going to really be doing anything here with this site as is. Again, you're going to really be angry because we're going to change everything we've done here and we're going to kind of almost remake it. But we're just going to do one more thing that I want to mention before we move on, because you have to know this stuff before we go to the next programming language. So I'll be back in a sec.